He succeeds me as Duke of Cornwall and takes on the responsibilities for the Duchy of Cornwall, which I have undertaken for more than 5 decades.
Fresh reports of an emotional confrontation have reignited intense speculation about long-standing tensions within the royal family. According to circulating claims, Princess Diana's brother confronted an alleged plan involving Queen Camilla in the presence of King Charles, sparking widespread attention. As debate spreads across royal circles, many are asking whether this dramatic encounter exposed deeper divisions behind palace walls. What really happened? Why has Prince William become central to the story? But do you think this confrontation could shatter the family's fragile bond forever? Share your thoughts in the comments below. To help us create more videos and uncover the latest royal drama, please subscribe. The Diana Legacy Dispute. The private meeting at Windsor Castle was unlike anything the royal family had faced in years. There were no advisors offering guidance, no palace officials taking notes, and no members of the press waiting outside the door. Only a small group of family members sat together, knowing that what was about to be discussed could reopen wounds that had never truly healed. The atmosphere was tense from the very beginning, as everyone understood that this was far more than an ordinary family conversation. Charles Spencer had insisted that the meeting take place after claiming he had uncovered information that deeply concerned him. According to the claims presented during the discussion, there had been efforts behind palace walls to reduce the Spencer family's future role in protecting Princess Diana's memory. The concerns reportedly centered on decisions involving memorial events, historical records, and even the way future generations of the royal family would come to understand Diana's life and legacy. Spencer did not hide his frustration. He openly questioned whether certain palace figures had supported plans that would gradually place Diana's story entirely under royal control while limiting the voice of her own family. The accusation immediately changed the mood inside the room. Every word seemed heavier than the last, and the silence between each sentence became impossible to ignore. Prince William remained quiet for much of the exchange. He listened as documents, private letters, and reported conversations were brought into the discussion. The suggestion that his mother may have been viewed as a difficult chapter to manage rather than a beloved member of the family appeared to strike him deeply. Those listening could sense the emotional weight building with every new claim. Camilla strongly denied supporting any attempt to push the Spencer family aside. She reportedly argued that any discussions had always been intended to protect the stability and reputation of the monarchy, not erase Diana's importance. Yet what drew even more attention was King Charles's reaction. Instead of immediately responding, he carefully examined the papers placed before him. His silence filled the room with uncertainty, leaving everyone wondering what he was thinking. The tension reached another level when one document suggested that decisions affecting Diana's public legacy may have started much earlier than anyone had previously believed. William finally broke the silence, asking who had approved such proposals. No answer came. The unanswered question only made the emotional moment even harder to bear. But this confrontation revealed something even bigger than hidden documents or family disagreements. It exposed the very different ways Diana's legacy is remembered inside the royal family. Why do those closest to her still see her story so differently? And what does that reveal about the battles that continue behind palace walls? Stay glued to your screen, because what comes next uncovers those competing visions in surprising detail. Diana through different eyes. To understand why Diana's brother chose that exact moment to speak, you first have to understand what every person inside that private meeting was carrying in their heart. It was never just about a disagreement over royal plans or how history should be presented. Hidden beneath the calm faces was a much deeper struggle, shaped by years of pain, loyalty, regret, and unanswered questions. For Prince William, Diana was never simply a beloved royal figure remembered by millions. She was his mother, the person whose love, kindness, and loss changed the course of his entire life. Even as the Prince of Wales and the future king, he could never separate his public duty from the personal memories that still followed him every day. The lessons she taught him influenced how he treated people, how he supported Catherine, and how he chose to raise Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Protecting Diana's memory was not about tradition. It was about protecting a part of himself that no royal title could ever replace. Earl Spencer viewed everything through a different lens. Long before Diana became the Princess of Wales, she was his sister. He remembered the young woman who laughed with her family before the weight of royal life surrounded her. To him, her story did not belong only to palace records, official speeches, or carefully managed public ceremonies. It also belonged to the Spencer family, who believed they had a responsibility to defend the truth of the woman they had known all their lives. Any attempt to reshape that story without their voice felt deeply personal. Before the meeting even began, William had quietly read a handwritten message from his uncle. Those few pages were enough to change his expression. Catherine immediately sensed something was wrong and offered to stand beside him, but William gently refused. This was not a battle he wanted to face as the future king. It was one he felt he had to face as Diana's son. Catherine simply squeezed his hand, knowing the conversation ahead could reopen wounds that had never fully healed. King Charles entered the room carrying his own concerns. Moments earlier, Camilla had insisted that recent decisions had been misunderstood and were only meant to avoid confusion. Charles answered carefully, warning that confusion becomes far more dangerous when people begin to feel deliberately left out. At the same time, Camilla reportedly feared something much larger. She worried that if the Spencer family became more involved in protecting Diana's legacy, they could challenge the palace whenever Diana's name was used. Then the atmosphere changed completely. Spencer finally revealed the real reason he had come. He reached for a carefully preserved family document and presented a deeply personal letter written by Diana during one of the loneliest periods of her life. As William listened, the room fell silent, unaware that the next revelation would expose a secret no one expected. But what was hidden inside that letter? And why did it leave everyone speechless? Keep watching to find out how it all started. When Charlotte asked why, for years, many believed the tension surrounding Princess Diana's legacy was driven by old family disagreements. But according to this account, the real turning point came much later, during what was supposed to be a peaceful event celebrating her remarkable life. No one expected that one quiet conversation involving Princess Charlotte would set off a chain of private discussions that would soon reach the highest levels of the royal household. The gathering itself appeared flawless. Members of the royal family stood alongside representatives of Diana's charities and relatives from the Spencer family in an atmosphere filled with respect and remembrance. Every speech had been carefully prepared, every appearance thoughtfully arranged, and every smile seemed to reflect unity. To those watching from the outside, it looked like a rare moment where both sides of Diana's life had come together to honor the woman they had all loved in different ways. But once the formal program ended and guests began talking more freely, something unexpected happened. Princess Charlotte, curious about the grandmother she never had the chance to meet, wandered toward a display of Diana's personal writings. Looking at one of the handwritten notes, she innocently asked why she had never visited the larger family collection preserved by the Spencer family. It was a simple question from a child trying to understand her own family history. Yet those nearby immediately realized it carried far greater meaning. Charles Spencer warmly assured Charlotte that she and her brothers would always be welcome to learn about Diana's life through the family's private collection. Prince William quietly listened as the conversation unfolded. Watching his daughter search for a connection with the mother he had lost years earlier stirred emotions that were difficult to hide. Diana's absence was no longer just part of William's past. It was becoming something his own children were beginning to feel. Catherine reportedly noticed the change in William's expression. recognizing that Charlotte's curiosity had reopened memories that never truly disappeared. According to the account, the conversation also caught Camilla's attention. Later, during a private discussion with King Charles, she is said to have expressed concern that unrestricted access to the Spencer family's archives could encourage different versions of Diana's story to influence future generations. Charles reportedly listened carefully but offered little response, leaving the matter unresolved. That silence allegedly opened the door for further discussions behind palace walls. Soon afterward, advisors were reportedly asked to examine ways of placing future Diana-related events, family access, and commemorations under tighter palace oversight. Draft proposals were said to focus on creating a single, official process for managing Diana's legacy, while limiting outside influence over how her story would be presented. But those quiet plans would not remain hidden forever. When Charles Spencer reportedly learned what was happening behind closed doors, he refused to stay silent. What explosive words were exchanged when Diana's brother finally challenged Camilla face-to-face, and did that heated clash leave the entire royal family shaken? Stay glued to your screen. Let's find out. Spencer confronts Camilla. Spencer did not walk into Windsor hoping for a peaceful discussion. By the time he arrived, he believed he had gathered enough information to connect every piece of the puzzle. What had started as Princess Charlotte's innocent curiosity about her late grandmother no longer looked like a simple family matter. To him, it appeared that private conversations inside the palace had slowly turned that simple question into something much bigger. Without showing anger, Spencer calmly placed several papers on the table. His quiet voice carried far more weight than shouting ever could. Beside one another lay an old letter connected to Diana and official palace records that, in his view, revealed an uncomfortable pattern. Looking directly at Camilla, he asked whether anyone truly believed a mother could be remembered, while her own family was quietly pushed further away from the children who wanted to know her. The room fell silent. King Charles watched without interrupting, while Prince William listened carefully as every page was examined. Spencer pointed to meeting records, advisor notes, and proposed changes that appeared to tighten control over how Diana's memory would be shared with her grandchildren. What some described as simple household planning, Spencer saw as something far more personal. He argued that official language could never hide the emotional impact of limiting the people who knew Diana best. Then came the question no one seemed ready to answer. Had there been an effort to make sure William's children learned about Diana only through carefully managed palace guidance, instead of hearing stories directly from her own family? Camilla rejected the suggestion that she wanted Diana forgotten. She insisted any discussions were meant to create consistency and prevent William's children from being caught between different versions of family history. According to her explanation, the goal had always been to avoid confusion rather than erase anyone's legacy. But those words did little to calm William. The prince reportedly made it clear that his children were not pieces in a royal strategy. They were simply grandchildren who deserved the chance to understand the woman whose kindness and compassion still inspired millions. To William, Charlotte's interest in Diana should have been welcomed, not treated as a problem requiring new rules. Spencer then introduced another document. This one allegedly recorded concerns that increasing comparisons between Charlotte and Diana could affect Camilla's standing in the eyes of future generations. Charles reportedly looked toward his wife, waiting for an explanation. Her hesitation filled the room with even greater tension. Before anyone could move on, Spencer reminded everyone that silence had once allowed painful mistakes to grow unchecked, and history should never be allowed to repeat itself. But as emotions reached their highest point, another question remained. What is the expectation of Williams as this family divide grew even deeper? Stay glued as we uncover every detail. William awaits the decision. Every eye in the room eventually turned toward one person. The heated arguments had been made, the documents had been presented, and the accusations had shaken everyone present. But none of it truly mattered until King Charles made his decision. William watched his father carefully, knowing that the future of his mother's legacy now rested in his hands. The reported proposal had exposed growing concerns about how Princess Diana's memory would be managed in the years ahead. Although palace officials were said to have drafted the plan and others may have supported it, it still lacked the king's final approval. Without his signature, it could be stopped immediately. With his approval, however, it could quietly shape how future generations remembered Diana. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. Instead of easing the tension, Charles's refusal to speak seemed to make the situation even heavier. His silence raised a difficult question of its own. Would he defend his wife from public embarrassment, or would he act to protect the memory of the woman who was once the mother of the future king? Reports suggested that parts of the proposal had already begun influencing palace decisions. Invitations had reportedly been adjusted. Communication with the Spencer family had become more limited, and access to certain records had grown increasingly restricted. While the plan had not officially taken effect, many believed its influence was already being felt behind the scenes. Camilla then spoke, urging Charles not to abandon the proposal under pressure. She reportedly argued that changing course at that moment would make it seem as though every accusation against her had been true. She insisted that her actions had been aimed at protecting the monarchy, not rewriting Diana's place in history. Before Charles could respond, William quietly stepped forward. His voice was calm, but every word carried years of emotion. He explained that this was never about asking his father to choose between two women. Instead, he pleaded for something much greater. He wanted honesty to come before convenience, and truth to matter more than protecting appearances. Diana's memory, he believed, should never be shaped by whatever version of history was easiest for the palace to accept. Charles looked at his son with visible emotion and reached out toward him. But William stepped back, leaving his father's hand hanging in the air. That heartbreaking moment said more than words ever could. Now the time had come for the decision only a king could make. Would Charles choose the crown, his family, or the truth? Keep watching as we uncover the decisive decision by King Charles. Charles draws the line. The room had already witnessed sharp disagreements and painful emotions, but Charles Spencer had one final revelation. Calmly, he placed another document on the table, and its contents immediately shifted the mood. It was an internal timetable showing that parts of the disputed proposal were scheduled to begin before the next major anniversary, honoring Princess Diana. On the surface, the changes appeared to be ordinary administrative updates. But as King Charles carefully examined the dates, he noticed something deeply troubling. The process had been moved forward without his final approval, suggesting that someone believed his signature was only a matter of time because Camilla supported the proposal. That discovery forced the king to act without hesitation. He reached for his fountain pen, drew a bold line across the authorization page, and wrote that the entire proposal was to stop immediately. He also ordered the complete file to be sealed until a formal investigation determined who had allowed the process to continue without his approval. With a single decision, months of planning came to a sudden halt. Silence filled the room. Camilla remained motionless, unable to hide her shock. William looked emotionally drained, while Spencer quietly folded away Diana's letter, saying nothing at all. Around the table, several palace officials exchanged nervous glances as they realized the investigation could threaten their own positions. Windsor Castle suddenly felt heavier than ever. Yet freezing the proposal solved very little. It exposed how much pain, mistrust, and resentment had quietly grown inside the royal family over many years. The meeting ended without any real sense of peace. Spencer gathered his papers and left with quiet dignity. William walked out without looking toward Camilla. King Charles stayed behind, staring at the crossed-out document that now symbolized a family more divided than united. Soon afterward, private doors closed throughout Windsor as each member retreated to face their own thoughts. Although the proposal had been stopped, the emotional damage remained impossible to ignore. The king wasted no time issuing fresh instructions. Every order connected to the proposal was suspended, and officials were told to provide the names of anyone who had acted without royal approval. Spencer also received written confirmation that his family would continue playing an important role in future discussions surrounding Diana's legacy and her grandchildren. William barely noticed those decisions. Standing alone in a quiet hallway, he leaned against a nearby table, trying to regain his composure. Spencer found him there, but chose not to interrupt. He understood that, for one brief moment, William needed to grieve as a son rather than carry the weight of being the future king. As investigators continued their work, more surprising details began to emerge, raising even deeper questions about decisions already made behind palace walls. But what hidden discovery would reveal just how far these private actions had already reached? Stay glued to your screen as we uncover William and the king's private conversation. The private royal conversation. Later that evening, King Charles asked William to meet him in private. There were no palace officials, no advisors waiting with carefully chosen words, and no official records being written. This was not a formal royal meeting. It was simply a father sitting down with his son after one of the most emotional days they had shared in years. Instead of using one of the grand palace offices, Charles chose a small sitting room where titles and traditions seemed to matter far less. On the table rested only two items: a withdrawn proposal and a letter connected to Diana. Nothing else stood between them. William entered the room expecting another explanation or another attempt to defend what had happened. Instead, Charles surprised him by speaking with complete honesty. He admitted he should have stopped the proposal the moment it reached him. Looking back, he realized that by waiting too long, he had allowed others to treat Diana's memory as if it could be managed, controlled, and reshaped instead of being protected with care and respect. William listened quietly before finally revealing what had hurt him the most. He explained that the proposal itself was painful, but his father's hesitation had cut even deeper. For a brief moment, all the emotions from his childhood came rushing back. He no longer felt like the Prince of Wales preparing for the throne. He felt like a young boy once again, hoping someone would stand up for his mother. Charles lowered his head, accepting the weight of those words. He admitted that he had been torn between defending his wife and protecting his son's trust. In trying to avoid embarrassing one member of the family, he had unintentionally wounded another. The silence that followed carried more meaning than any speech. For the first time, neither of them spoke through the duties of the crown. They spoke honestly, as father and son. Then Charles presented a different path forward. He suggested creating a shared family council that would oversee Diana's legacy together. William, Catherine, members of the Spencer family, and eventually Diana's grandchildren would all have a voice in preserving her memory. No single household or individual would have complete control over future decisions. William considered the proposal carefully, but would he truly accept the changes, or was one final condition about to reshape everything? Let's unravel every detail. William chooses unity. As more details reportedly emerged from inside the palace, the pressure became impossible to ignore. A confidential briefing allegedly revealed that the controversial proposals had gone far beyond private conversations. According to the account, changes had already begun affecting invitations, access to important events, and the way Diana-related matters were being handled behind closed doors. What many had dismissed as rumor was now being treated as a serious issue. Facing growing scrutiny, King Charles reportedly ordered major changes within the royal offices responsible for these decisions. The restructuring was presented as an effort to ensure that no single department would have unchecked influence over matters connected to Princess Diana's memory. Soon afterward, the king issued another public statement, emphasizing that Diana's contributions to both the monarchy and the country would continue to be honored with the involvement of her sons as well as the Spencer family. For Prince William, however, public words alone were not enough. He understood that trust had to be rebuilt through actions rather than promises. Instead of responding with anger or deepening the family divide, he reportedly chose a different path. A few days later, William traveled privately to Althorp with Catherine and their children. There were no photographers waiting outside and no carefully planned public appearances. It was simply a family visit to the place where Diana's story had begun. Standing near her resting place, William is said to have made a personal commitment that her memory would never again depend on last-minute battles whenever disagreements arose. According to the account, that promise inspired plans for a shared system that would allow both the royal family and the Spencers to help guide future memorials, charitable projects, and historical records connected to Diana. The goal was not control, but cooperation, ensuring that no single voice could shape her legacy alone. During the visit, Princess Charlotte reportedly asked her father whether her grandmother would have been proud of him. The question touched everyone present. William answered that he hoped Diana would be proud because the family was finally choosing honesty over silence and unity over fear. Later, William reportedly accepted his father's apology while making it clear that their relationship could only move forward through openness. Even those who had supported the earlier proposals were said to step back from future decisions involving Diana's legacy, allowing a new chapter to begin. But one man never believed his duty had truly ended. For Charles Spencer, protecting his sister's memory was more than a family responsibility. It had become a lifelong promise. Why does Spencer believe only he can safeguard Diana's true story? And what vow has he carried since the day she died? Let's explore. Guardian of Diana's legacy. For Charles Spencer, Althorp has never been just another grand country estate. It is the place where Princess Diana spent much of her childhood, where countless family memories were made, and where her final resting place now draws visitors from around the world. More than anything else, Althorp has become the heart of Diana's story, outside the walls of the royal palaces. That is why Spencer has devoted so much of his life to preserving it, believing that protecting Althorp also means protecting his sister's true legacy. Every year, Spencer opens parts of the estate to visitors, allowing people to learn more about Diana's early years before she became one of the most famous women in history. Family photographs, personal belongings, and carefully preserved rooms offer a glimpse into the life she lived, long before royal titles changed her future. These displays are not simply historical exhibits. They remind people that Diana was first a daughter, a sister, and a member of the Spencer family before she became the Princess of Wales. At the center of the estate lies the Oval Lake, where Diana is buried on a small island. The peaceful location was chosen to give her the privacy that often escaped her during her lifetime. While the public cannot visit the island itself, many people travel to Althorp every year to pay their respects from across the water. For Spencer, maintaining this quiet place of remembrance has become one of his most personal responsibilities. Over the years, he has repeatedly spoken about the importance of ensuring that Diana's life is remembered honestly, rather than through endless speculation or changing public opinion. He has worked to preserve family records, personal memories, and the estate itself so future generations can understand who Diana truly was beyond newspaper headlines and royal history. That responsibility has become even more meaningful as Diana's grandchildren have grown older. Althorp remains one of the few places where they can connect with the Spencer side of their family and learn about the woman whose compassion, kindness, and humanity continue to inspire millions. In many ways, Charles Spencer sees himself not simply as the guardian of an historic estate, but as the protector of a family legacy that he believes deserves to be preserved with dignity, accuracy, and respect for generations to come. So, what do you think about King Charles's decisive decision on this issue? Do you believe he made the right choice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.